Forward to the cloud. All right. Thank you all for bearing with me. And welcome to tonight's program. So as Jim mentioned, we're going to be talking about the CERT organization and also how it relates to the ICS system. So let's go on. But the start, as we do with every class, we go through talking about our safety, working as a team, wearing personal protective equipment. And our goal is to do the greatest good for the greatest number, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Wow. I gotta find something that's not jumping. So our objective tonight is to describe the Incident Command System, ICS, and identify how CERT really relates to ICS as far as function and things. And it should come to you as what we know is CERT in the organization. And then we're going to get into how we in CERT Pleasant Hill are organized. So the Incident Command System is used by all first responders. And the nice thing about ICS is that be it fire, police, CERT, city organizations, all have the same organization using the ICS system. I had an opportunity, I don't know how many years ago, as a CERT member to attend an exercise at the Chevron refinery in Richmond. And there were three of us that went from Pleasant Hill that were invited. And when we got there, we knew exactly what was going on because we knew the organization. So its goal here in ICS is to provide on-scene management and organizational structure to respond to the effort. The nice thing about ICS is it's flexible, scalable, and get as large or as small as you want. For the refinery exercise, the incident commander was the United States Coast Guard. But still working with the refinery and others, everybody knew what their job was and what to do. So there's this common denominator in all of them. There are 5 major management activities in ICS: command, operations, that's planning, logistics, and for CERT, even though there's finance and administration, we don't have any money. So we probably will not be filling that particular position. So the incident commander determines what to do. And since everything is scalable, it could be big picture, okay? It can be small, it doesn't really matter, but to figure out what they're going to do and give some priority to it. We would call this a CERT leader. I know with our 4 areas, we've called them the incident commander, but if we really did have an event in Pleasant Hill, the incident commander is only one person, and that would be at the Emergency Operations Center. So this would be like CERT Northwest leader, okay? Operations, how to do it. So manages the teams in the field. And there's a variety of teams, and when we get into CERT, talking about more about CERT, you'll see what those are. Logistics, how does it support it? Manage resources, supplies, equipment. Planning and intelligence. So what's going on? Planning is something that if we had an event in CERT would not be filled initially, but we certainly would fill it eventually. And then administration, what gets recorded. So basic structure would be an incident commander, and we'd call him and his support folks right there the command staff. There's what's called a general staff. You don't need to remember general staff, but the general staff would be somebody who's in charge of administration, probably a chief, planning chief, operations chief, logistics chief. And again, those are direct reports. So that on-scene management that we mentioned would provide clear leadership and organizational structure to the response. Improves effectiveness of the effort because we're managing the incident right on scene rather than from a distance. Takes care of physical safety for the disaster workers and maintains mental well-being of disaster workers. ICS characteristics. Management by objectives. So when we're going to have an incident and respond to it, we're going to do it by identifying what is, but most likely, what are the objectives that we want to achieve. Okay. One of those objectives certainly would be safety. Unity of command basically means, just like at work, everybody has a boss. Everybody reports on up to someone. Span of control. I wish these guidelines were in effect when I was supervising PG&E, but span of control means that we're somewhat limiting, and we've got a slide coming up to talk about the number of people that each level supervises. We use common terminology. This also allows one entity, if you had combined, let's say Con Fire with San Ramon Valley Fire, having that common terminology allows them to communicate and understand what each other's doing. And of course, we always have accountability. And this is not only just accountability at the top or the team lead, but everyone is accountable for their activities, their involvement with their team. I talked about that span of control. So it's generally in ICS, it's between 3 and 17 members. Would like not to exceed 5. But what this does is it allows for better control and supervision. If you had this particular type of ratio. I can remember in my former working days of having up to 20 people that I supervised. I did the best I could, but it was hard to keep tabs of everybody, what they were working on, what they were doing, and let alone having to do their performance reviews. So let's take a look at what would happen if we had a 6.8 earthquake hit on a Saturday morning. What do you do? The easy answer to that is what we teach is we take care of ourselves, our family, take a look at our home. Is it safe? Okay. And then our neighbors. And what we mean by neighbors is not going through your whole neighborhood, but you may have some neighbors that are seniors or have mobility problems. And you may want to check on them before responding to the staging area. So this would be your staging area is going to be at the Hope Center, St. Andrews Presbyterian Church, Pleasant Hill Park, and Seventh-day Adventist Church. Those are our 4 staging areas. And as you go and respond to that, we want you to gather facts along the way. My old neighborhood in Pleasant Hill, all brick chimneys. And I'm sure a lot of them are going to be down. That may be an observation that I have. So you want to gather those facts, write them down. First person to arrive is in charge of the incident. So that would be the CERT leader. You know, in the past, we've had somebody say, well, I'm going to hang out until somebody else reports. Believe me, eventually this will be one of the easiest jobs that are there, that's at our incident command post. And think about it, if you're the first to arrive, what are you going to accomplish? We'll talk about some of the things you could do in upcoming slide. So it's important for us to have effective communications, manageable span of control, which we talked about, and maintain accountability. And again, remembering doing the good for the greatest number in a safe manner. So if you're the incident commander, your responsibility is to set the objectives and the priorities, has overall responsibility of the incident itself. That seems like just something that's overwhelming. Establishes the command post, assigns personnel as needed, initially may be responsible for operations, planning, logistics, administrative duties, and ensures coordination of staff actions and activities. Sounds like a whole lot, but let's take a look at those immediate things you're going to do. Identify the scope of the incident. What's the problem? What have you found? If you're the only one there, you just know what you saw. Determines the overall strategy. What can CERT do, and will they be able to do it? Deploys resources, which is who's going to do what, and then document. As we hear from Mike more than once, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So initial actions to take, you're going to write down what you observed. You're going to open the FRS radio net. And hopefully on the back of your radio, you wrote down what frequency it is that you're going to use. Turn your radio on, set that frequency. Then Carol will give you the example of Southeast CERT area. This is Carol. The radio net is now open. If you can hear me, please respond. Write down any contacts and any damage or injuries that have been reported to you at that time. So here comes another CERT member. You're going to identify yourself as the incident commander. It says write down numbers 2 observations. But if you were a smart incident commander, you would have number 2 write down his own observations. And then you're going to ask him to be a scribe. So as more people come, we'll have one person which will be collecting information. So here's more. You're going to identify yourself. Scribe records number 3 observations, or if he's a smart scribe, he's going to have number 3, record them and hand them to him. So we're going to ask number 3 then to do the personnel sign-in log. It records arrivals, keep them abreast of what we know, and ensure new arrivals, talk with the scribe. So now we've got 3 people, but as the incident commander, other than some things that have been handed to you, unless your area has pre-existing areas that you may want to go to first, you still can take a look at some of the information that's been provided, but there's not a whole lot you can do so far. So, as Jim says, take that deep breath, have a few minutes to read over the notes. You have to take a look at, first of all, lives in danger. That's the number 1 priority. Then take a look at buildings that may be damaged and Do you know if there are any victims that need medical help? So during the course of an incident, those three bullets, lives in danger, building damage, victims that need medical support, will stay with you. That's just not the initial thing, okay? So you want to, as we take a look, the logical priorities of those three will remain the same throughout the incident. So now we have an incident commander. We have a ham radio operator that came who reported to the EOC, be it at the police department or at City Hall, and was assigned to this area. The incident commander still has a scribe, but now he's appointed an operations chief. So as soon as the incident commander does that, all field activity has now been delegated to the operations chief, who will need to know what people saw on the way in, because he'll need to assemble teams, search and rescue teams. And I'll just stop with that. So now more people have come, and we have operations. And his line, excuse me, his span of control is he has 3 search and rescue people. Okay, and we're going to say if we're going to send somebody to the field, then we want at least 3 groups. So each search and rescue group, search and rescue 1 would have a group leader and at least 2 other CERT members. The same with search and rescue group 2 and search and rescue group 3. Taking a look at this, the span of control is still keeping the numbers down. Now what's happened in operations, there's a scribe here. Okay, that scribe may also act as what we call a plotter mapper, where we want to plot where incidents are and where teams are assigned out. What's not in this particular slide, but under operations, is where the message center would be. Okay, that's taking information. We haven't really assigned that yet because we don't have a bunch of teams out in the field that are going to be using the radio to call in. But you'll see down on the left-hand side, underneath the word scribe, you'll see S&R. So now we have a search and rescue group leader, because this has now gone to 6, and we're freeing up that responsibility from the operations section chief. Okay, so keeping with that span of control, he's got a couple, and actually he would have a couple more with the message center. But under search and rescue, he's got 1 group leader who's supervising 6 teams out in the field. We've also established medical. So we have a medical group leader and a medical team underneath that medical group leader to respond. The important thing as our organization grows is to keep a balance between what I want to call like a support staff back at the incident command post and field activity. Because if you overload one over the other, you're not being effective. If you've got too many people out in the field and nobody to support them back at the ICP, then it's not going to work. The other way around. You've got all these positions filled back at the ICP, but nobody out in the field to do the work. So there is that responsibility. Also, as the incident commander is expanding his organization, he also has other people to talk to. So he wants to know from the operations section chief what's happening out in the field, what new incidents are coming in. The ops chief has a responsibility to get in touch with the incident commander and fill him in on field activity. We also opened up logistics. So we have an logistics chief there, because somewhere along the lines, we're going to need to set up some canopies for medical and pass out equipment and other things like that. So the incident commander at a regular interval is going to report back to the Emergency Operations Center at the police department via ham radio. So we want to know initially which incident command post it is. It's a northwest, southeast, whatever, and who the incident commander is. We'd want to know the number of CERT members that have reported in, number of disaster service workers, DSW, convergent volunteers. So these are non-CERT members, people from the community who walked up and said, I want to help. This particular thing, you know, they really need to be sworn in as disaster service workers and be sent to City Hall to get sworn in. We want to know the number of victims that we have, whether or not we have any displaced residents. Their house could be damaged and they can't get back, and anything on the number of damaged structures. What kind of assistance we would need, percent of zone swept and those hardest hit. So each of the 4 areas is broken up into zones. Northwest, I know, has 30 zones. It would be nice to say that if we swept 3 of them, that were 3 out of the 30, we're 10% done. Okay, so breaking up to zones are smaller units of neighborhood, blocks in the neighborhood and houses, to where we could, within a reasonable period of time, walk that area, call in. And again, if they call in through the message center, then the operations chief would get a better picture of those areas that are hardest hit, so we could pass that along to the incident commander to report to the EOC. And then any other significant incidents that have been opened or closed. So traffic accident, broken water mains, down power poles, those types of things. And once we know that that's been taken care of, we can call back in via the ham radio and say that it's closed. And then for the incident commander, just generally his overall assessment, feelings on how things are going. So in the end, these folks didn't panic when flooding threatened Ireland. However, not too many were drinking Guinness, but anyhow, in the end, calm heads prevail. So what's important to remember about the CERT organization, let me just kind of summarize this, that 1, we are volunteers. They're going to be out doing the best we can from remembering what it is we were taught. We're going to have some organized structure, similar and mirroring the ICS system. We'll have a CERT leader for each of the 4 areas. That CERT leader can be replaced if the first one there is not comfortable doing that job and somebody more qualified comes up, have a discussion if they want to take over. Okay, so we'll have a leader. We're going to grow the organization. We're going to keep in mind priorities, and that's life over property. Okay, we want to remember that all the way through and take care of those that are injured. And let me admit somebody here. And as we do that, expand the organization in a balanced manner to where we have enough organization at the incident command post to support the field activity and not too much field activity without the support. So there's a balance there. As an incident commander, you're going to be reporting in initially, once that ham radio operator arrives, to the EOC, give them some basic information. You may not have much to tell them initially. They will establish, it'll either be, maybe Jim or I will establish a frequency in which we're asking the incident commanders to report in, or the CERT leaders, to report in on the hour, let's say, and give us that information. So we in turn know what's going on. If there's other things that need immediate attention, the incident commander would go to the ham radio operator and ask them to contact the EOC that we need con fire or possibly an ambulance. Those types of things don't wait to report on the hour, but that is basically it.
Gordon, what's the possibility that a ham operator would not show up in one of our areas?
I'm going to stop sharing, by the way. And Jim Hirahara,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You might have a better chance at doing that. A lot of it is going to depend, as it will for all of us, the time of day of the week. We have overall, is it 20-something ham operators?
Yeah, over 20 ham licensed operators. We've been trying to inventory people who are licensed to operate a ham radio, and our goal is to have like enough people for each of the 4 areas, plus a couple at the EOC, using as a maximum case 3 8-hour shifts, assuming there's a 24-hour operation. So that's the arithmetic would work out to around 32 or so ham operators. And we have a list of people that could, if everything was perfect, everybody could show up. We have enough resources, but we need to build up our capability and get more people licensed. At the outset of an emergency, we're asking all of our, and I've already coordinated with a number of people who have indicated their willingness to show up for an event. And it depends on the time of day and whether they're at work and a lot of different factors. But I think we would have at least at the beginning of a event enough people to report to the EOC. You need to have probably half dozen, a couple to stay at the EOC, and one for each of the areas. We did it this way because rather than sort of having the designated person from each area be the committed person to go there, by pooling all the resources within the city, we figured we could get enough people to actually show up and try to allocate them to each of the 4 areas. So you may get somebody that's not from he doesn't live in your particular area, but we're trying to make sure there's coverage everywhere. Obviously, if we're short, we're going to need to kind of do maybe a windshield survey or some data that shows where are the real urgent needs, and we'd have to allocate on a prioritized basis to those areas.
I think it's also important that if you were an incident commander and you had information you needed to get to the OC, to the police department, that you could send a runner.
Yeah.
Or a driver. Okay. But, get the information that way. Okay. It goes back to how are we all going to be notified? That slide that said we had an earthquake and what do you do next? Well, we know, what to do. But if we had a 6.8 earthquake, And we felt that there's a good chance we're going to just check out those things ourselves in our home and neighbors and head on out. Okay, so we'd self-mobilize in that particular situation. We do have phone trees, but that's going to depend on whether or not cell towers and are available and working, or actually phone lines even. So there may be, for those that have signed up for Nixle, there may be possibility of a Nixle notification. And the same for those people that have signed up with the county. If we had, a major earthquake that affected a large area like that, could get some notification that way. But, we're going to say when in doubt, report. And if we're not needed, then we go home. Okay. But that's how we would act. Go ahead. I saw a hand. Yes.
Yeah, I live in Walnut Creek Manor,
Uh-huh.
and there's like 480 apartments here. Well, maybe there's 450 apartments here. So it's very dense. And how much of my neighbors do I check on before I go to the command post?
That's entirely up to you.
Okay.
If you, whatever you're comfortable with. If in fact, I don't know how many units are in a particular building structure, the way that they are. But, you may pick those, Carol's got her hand up because she's your area coordinator.
Yeah.
But do you have a short answer, Carol?
I hope so. But Bob White, it's probably not super short. I can't remember when, year and a half, 2 years ago, Bob was talking about having Walnut Creek Manor be kind of like a mini ICP and take care of themselves.
Yes.
And he plans to stay there.
Okay.
And he's a ham radio operator. And I'm not sure whether he would call into the park or to the EOC.
Okay.
But the idea was for the Walnut Creek Manor people to stay in Walnut Creek Manor and take care of themselves and as many other people there as they could.
Okay. Thank you. That
was
relieves
my
my
understanding.
mind a lot. I like that answer. Thank you very much.
And the other thing is, you're on the other side of the freeway.
Yeah.
And if that overpass collapses, you're going to be somewhat isolated anyway.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. I have a comment. I know we talked a while ago and you mentioned in this, in your presentation, that we're using the term CERT leader instead of incident commander.
Mhm.
But what we put in the FOM, the Field Operations Manual, for those
Well
who
aware of
don't
it,
like
Carol.
acronyms. What?
I said, I'm well aware of it. We call
Yeah,
it
but the
incident commander.
We called them area, everything was CERT area incident commander, CERT area operations chief.
Correct.
So I'm not, we need to change the terminology because we're using the term CERT area.
Jim, you want to, is this a C8 thing?
Yeah, Gordon and I
Which is
had
now
this,
C4.
Gordon and I had this discussion probably about a month and a half ago. Since that time, Gordon, there has been some pushback by members on the Contra Costa CERT Coalition to call it to follow incident command system, the ICS system, the way it was authored and intended. Which means if we had 4 CERT areas, we would have an area incident commander.
Okay.
So we have not finalized that yet, but that seems to be the way that the county representatives want to go. And when I say county representatives, it's not a Contra Costa County official thing. It's a group of program
Right.
managers like myself that come from each city to, to organize this thing.
So C8 is no longer, it is now the Contra Costa CERT Coalition.
Yes.
Right. That makes a whole, it's C4 now. You don't have to remember 8 words.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So, Cherie, Jim, I think answered your question.
Yes, yes,
Now, all ham operators report to the EOC. That way we
Right.
make sure we have ham operators at the EOC, and all of the extra ham operators will go out to the 4 different areas. And we would try to keep that, a Southwest ham operator in the Southwest area.
right.
Okay.
And I think, once they report and respond back, and let's say in Southwest, you had 3 that responded back to the incident command post, then it would be up to that individual incident command post to determine what are you going to do with the 3 people. You're keeping 1, sending the other 2 out on a search and rescue team, or keeping 1, telling somebody to report back in 4 hours or 8 hours or something like that. That will be a local decision. That said, if we have 2 hams at the EOC, we're also going to need some relief as well. And we would probably set that up before we released everybody back out to the areas.
Yeah.
The same time they report in.
But it's important that we establish communication from the CERT Area Incident Command to the EOC. That's so important.
Anything else?
Well, Gordon, that was a very good short thumbnail discussion on the incident command system and how we operate here in Pleasant Hill. If you're on the receiving end of this discussion, you think, boy, this is complicated. It really isn't complicated. Many of us have already, we've either been involved with throwing a Christmas party at work, or an annual company picnic, or a birthday party at home, or what have you. And it's just basically having an idea of the big picture and being comfortable in delegating the responsibilities out to make sure that it gets done. So easy peasy. It doesn't look easy peasy, but it really is. And as Gordon said earlier, probably the easiest job is the incident commander.
Well, I think too, just based on my knowledge of a couple of people in the Southeast area,
Yeah.
I think some people are afraid to do it wrong. And as Gordon pointed out, we're volunteers doing the best job we can.
Yes, that's
And-
right. Mhm.
And whatever you do is going to be what's right for that time.
That's correct. And we are not going to second guess you at all.
And I think it's important too, to utilize the team structure. You don't have to be alone in doing things. If you're on a search and rescue team and you're really not sure that we want to go in that house, that the way that the structure is, then that the team should say, if one team member says we shouldn't go in, then everybody needs to support that type of decision. It has to be team led. And the same thing, if you're the incident commander and other people are, showing up, you've got maybe 5 people. You want to take a look at what they saw, and also maybe to get their feelings. This is what we saw. And, you have people to share responsibilities with. Once your organization starts building, the incident commander basically sits back because he's got just a few people remembering our structure, that he's going to supervise, and he's going to be asking them to put data together for him and then get his section chiefs together and to meet and talk about the incident, the progress we've made, ideas on where we need to go next, or what area needs, more help. The incident commander, depending on your area, you may get together with your ham and call down to the EOC saying, do any of the other areas have surplus people? We need some help here. The important information to get to the EOC, so we know that either one area may be struggling because they don't have the number of resources, or it could be that that particular area was hit harder than other areas. Those are all things we don't have control over right now, but we will experience at that time.
Another thing that, again, we don't have a crystal ball, but if people show up and they have a mixed level of expertise, or, there's a number of people who took the training for sake of discussion 6 or 8 years ago and haven't taken any training since, but they show up. And then you have other people who, like the people in this meeting right now, who have kept their skills up to, when you build a team, to make sure that you don't put all the experienced people on one team and all the inexperienced people on another team.
Well put.
Now,
Well,
you may, as people show up, you may not have that luxury, but if you do.
Yeah, you can. And as the situation develops throughout the day or throughout the evening and more people show up, you can mix and match.
Yep. And if you're not sure of something, ask one of the other team members.
Yeah. Or give Jim a call at the EOC.
Here, Jim, this one's for you.
All right, Gordon. Well, thank you very much for your leading this discussion tonight and going through the ICS system with us again. So I will download this recording and get with Marlene to get it connected to our CERT, Pleasant Hill CERT website, and for Molly to get the information out to the CERT world in Pleasant Hill. So thank you all, and it's been a good 7 weeks, and I thank you all for going through this 7 weeks with us.
And thank you very much for putting this together.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I now know how to Zoom.
Yes.
Jim, so you have control, so you'll have to stop the recording.
All right.
And Jim Hirahara,
Yes.
can I give you a call in a minute?
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right.
All right. So let me figure out how to stop. There we go.
Still going.
Looks like it's still recording.
Yeah,
Yes.
Gordon, you have to end the recording. You're still the host.
Oh, okay.